Hello and welcome to Actual Play BALIKBAYAN. I'm very excited to be here with these wonderful folks in our finale game. Thanks everybody in chat for joining us. My name is Sean Nittner. I use he, him pronouns. You can find me everywhere at Sean Nittner. And I play Measure, who uses they, them pronouns. Measure is in this situation, very much hoping to support support Ezra, but is very distracted by Hangen, the new AI that they just sort of freed from the corporate network, and especially the ways in which Hangen is resembling, what was clearly not been seen on scene, but what was clearly Measure's lover, Elon, before he was he was wounded so horribly. And is now in hospice. So yeah, I'm real excited to see what goes down when Ezra and Effie meet up. How about you, Morgan?
Hi, I'm Morgan. My pronouns are they, them, and she, her interchangeably. You can find me on all the socials at Serena Bezos. I play Ezra. Ezra is an Aswang. They use they, them pronouns. They were summoned, trapped, lured to see their sister Effie, who is a part of the corp. Enticed. Pick your word of choice. And yeah, they're here and they're about to face off underneath a childhood tree of theirs, which is a jacaranda tree. So that's gonna be a great time. What about you, Ash?
Yeah, I'm Ash. You can find me around the place at Acegiak, Acegiak. And I'm playing Tonio, the Saint, and he's starting to fray a little, which is fun. He's a saint of he's a saint of like multiplicity and complexity, and like many voices and things like that. And he maybe made someone possessed by a god, kind of accidentally hollowed them out and filled them with the god of reclamation.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely didn't really understand that, but did it because he's relatively naive. He has this whole thing of like thinking, oh well, like complexity is like mature and like that's but he's very naive about it. So like yeah, it's very interesting, kind of trying to play him. But I'm keen to see what Jamie does with all these like mixing elements. How you doing, Jamie?
I'm doing good. I'm super happy to be here with everybody. All my wonderful disaster children in PC and NPC form. So I will see what happens. Last time we left off, we had this really mysterious moment of Effie walking towards her sibling Ezra as the blossoms fell. And I'm also still attached to the drones that were using holographic watering cans of the holographic trees,
Mm-hmm.
So but there we are. So I'm super excited. But yeah, so this is, as Sean said, our season finale. Let's see where things go. It could go into a lot of directions. So I'm excited to just see how that all plays out. Okay, so just to, because it's been a while since our last session. Thanks again, everybody, for your patience. So we were here in the newest sector of the city. This is a smart sector that Effie is in control of and has been working on for the corp. It is a sector that responds to your emotions. It's a smart city that responds to what you want of it. And we also know that the heart of the city has reached out or responded to Measure reaching out in the form of Miranda, the sentient advert, who speaks for the heart of the city. So she's here at any time that you need to reach out to tell you about the latest products that can help you, such as freedom, so on and so forth. We also have Hangin, who was originally just sent to drive over our elementals. I still like that moment when everybody was like, wait, we have to save.
Well, right, because Hungin was like, cool, you've compromised me. I gave you the information you wanted, and now I'm going to self-destruct. And we're like, no, what? That was not the deal.
It wasn't self-destruct. It was, I'm going to be overwritten by someone else, because Tonio was like, no one gets to override who you are as a person.
Yeah.
And I think Ezra's like, all right, cool, see you later. Have fun being overrun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, because when the corp overrides, it's different than when, a little god, like...
Yeah, exactly.
gets to
There's so
take
much
space.
difference between factory defaults and a little god just inhabiting somebody's psyche. And, yeah. But,
Well, no, that's because the little god inhabiting their psyche is faith.
Yeah.
And that,
that makes it
different.
much better. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, it definitely struck a chord with Measure and with Tonio, and as it seems to, we seem to have similar concerns about autonomy and about creatures sort of finding their own way. There's also this element that Measure knows that Tonio is actually made up of many sort of fragments himself, and so there's a part of him that part of Measure that always holds back in stopping Tonio from like causing this chaos, because they feel like it's sort of like what Tonio needs to do to figure themselves out. And if they were to be like, no, Tonio, you can't just set this wild thing free, like then Tonio's never gonna learn. So there's a lot of like biting of the lip of like, okay, all right, let's see how this goes. I'm sure it'll be fine.
It'll be fine.
It won't be fine, but
we had a really like ominous moment last time as well, where that kind of like kid that started to hit the front. So that's
yeah, I feel like it's coming out more. So
yeah, 100%. So lots of good stuff. But yeah, so we are here on one of the highest floors of this building. We can see most of this is holographic trees and plants with the little drones, but there's one real tree that was grafted here, ridiculously expensive. And it's slipping my mind. I can see it's purple and beautiful, but I forgot the name of the tree.
Jacaranda.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. And so there are all these beautiful purple flowers just falling, filling the entire room as Effie walks towards you, Ezra. And you can see that as she's coming closer, because there's something inherent about, as an Aswang, you can sense when something is off. As a predator, you can read that for sure. And you sense that as she comes closer, she's trying desperately to hide the fear that's building up inside of her, but she's masked it very well as she comes closer. And she says, I'm so glad that you could join us, Ezra.
What do you want, Effie?
We're not going to have any pleasantries first, she says. You can tell she's buying time.
Why use pleasantries when we can just get to the point?
And you see that she looks like her eyes flicker towards the side for a moment. In fact, because we're in a cyberpunk future, I'm going to say that you notice that her eyes split for a moment. So like one can keep track of what's going on the side while the other one is staring right at you.
Cool.
Are we, Morgan, are we with you right now? Or did we
I
sort of...
think y'all came in with me, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Still here for the moment.
Yeah, I feel very much that Measure is standing in that sort of like V formation. So they're just behind and to the side of Ezra right now.
Yeah, 100%. And then all of you notice that all these screens start to come up in the distance on the other buildings where the billboards will be, where the announcements are. And you all see like these strange, slow close-ups of King George, like just just their eyes, mouth, face over and over again, but the eyes are all starting to focus towards you. And Effie suddenly reaches out and grabs your hand, Ezra, and says, "If there could have been any other way, I would have done it."
What did you do?
And at that moment, everyone else sees that Ezra's form starts to digitize and turn into this bright light. And Ezra, you feel your whole self fading. What is the memory that comes to you, the last memory you had of Effie before you parted ways?
Oh gosh, I think we were younger adults, maybe late teens. Trying to think.
Yeah, even if you just want to like throw in just images and emotions,
Yeah,
that's totally okay.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like sort of like they had an argument. I'm gonna say there's some sort of something pulled them apart, and I think that we see Ezra just looking at Effie with some sort of like look of disappointment and just walking away, and we can just feel the rain just starting to fall, and it's heavy, and the emotions are just heavy. And
was that when Effie decided to join the corp?
Pippi, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we're gonna say like this car comes up and we see King George like in the car as the door opens up and Effie steps in, right? Oh, I like that. And as this memory plays out, the heavy rain, we focus on this gorgeous Ezra. I really love this character look. And the rain is just pouring down on them. Then it rewinds very abruptly, and you hear Effie's voice. "I shouldn't have walked away from you. If I had known what they were going to ask for, if I had known that it wasn't really me that they wanted, I wouldn't have walked away from you." And we can see it's rewinding, and there's that moment of regret that crystallizes where she wishes she had run towards you instead, and it plays out in transparency, like what could have been, what she wished could have happened. And I'm going to leave you for a moment, Ezra, as we cut back. We'll just have you sit in your feelings for a bit. Just a little bit. As we cut back to the others. So, Tonyo and Measure, you're there along with Hangin, and then at that moment, you hear Hangin say, "I see that they've sprung the trap." And all of the glass windows start to turn into this strange mirror-like structure instead. And we see that things start to melt out of the glass, like they look like strange forms before they like take on a more humanistic way, a humanistic look to them, and they start moving towards you. And you hear King George's voice saying, "Welcome. I've been expecting you. I'm sure you've met my assistant." And behind you, walking through the doors, is the prophet Allah Allah. And you can see that their hair is this deep dark black, but it's bioluminescent underneath. And she moves closer and she says, "I'm here to help you. If you don't resist and offer your memories, the corp will take care of you." What do you do?
I want to ask a question, and then I'm happy to take action, or Ash, if you didn't take action. I want to ask a clarifying question about the setting. Because
Sure.
Effie and Ezra are siblings, is that a reasonable inference that Effie is also an elemental? Or is it possible that elementals have human siblings? And maybe
question.
That's a question to you, Morgan, and maybe that's a question. I don't know based on this setting, but I just...
Yeah. So,
so
yeah. So basically, because the Aswang can turn someone into an Aswang, right? Unlike the other elementals. So, Morgan, the question is, were you always an Aswang? Was Ezra always an Aswang, or did Ezra get turned into one?
I think that memory that I had, the heaviness in Ezra's heart, is what led them to be in Aswan.
I was gonna say they turned themselves.
When Effie left you, you left too.
Oh no, that's so good.
Good. Cool. So presumably Effie is human. I don't know that is matters. I just needed to know.
Yeah.
I don't know if
You're
it's
like,
germane.
It doesn't matter, but I need to know.
Well, it might affect the way we talk to Allah.
Yeah.
Like, because
True,
whether or not,
true.
yeah. So yeah, Ash, you have I have some ideas, but I don't think Measure is one who's quick to like leap into action.
I definitely ask, like when Allah says like your memories, I go, what?
Your memories, my dear.
Remember, Allah is the one who claims to offer redemption and bliss in the form of forgetfulness.
Oh yeah, I know that, but I don't get why that's nice. What so you stop knowing things? Is that what you want?
And he turns to you and looks
like,
you over for a moment.
I guess I said to Allah, oh, do you want me to teach you?
And he smiles. I sense that you can teach me many things. Perhaps how one can hold so many minds, so many memories that don't belong to you in one person. It's very beautiful, if not cruel, but beautiful. And he smiles.
Yeah, I guess my I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I think it would be easiest. What would you like to learn about?
And I think this is
what should I teach you?
I think this is what Measure is just like, okay, I can't let my friend Tonio just walk into this. And they sort of put their hand on his shoulder and says, Tonio, I don't think she wants to learn from you. I think she wants to take from you. I think she wants you to be without.
And I think Tonio is like, oh, I can't be without. And I think I go up. I walk straight up to her, and I like hold out my hands in like a gesture of like offering. Like take my hands to Allah. And I'm like, if you need to take. I won't be without. And I am hoping that she takes my hands, and then I'd like to smite the wicked.
Oh, 100%. Let's do that.
That's a thing you can do.
Yeah, that is absolutely a thing you can do. So you can see
the idea that Allah thinks that the like the font of my multiplicity is so shallow that they can handle it.
Yeah, you're just gonna overwhelm them with all this complexity. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, one of the things that I'm thinking about is that Tonio's never really talked about remembering things as opposed to knowing. And we've had this thing of like they don't know their own past. So I have a feeling that like memory isn't actually a thing that exists within Tonio because like that divides time, right? Like in a way that Tonio isn't about, right? Tonio is about like the past and the present and the future all being complicated. It's all complicated. So there's not this clean division that Allah's looking for. So
100%. Yeah, so let's take a look at Smite the Wicked. You are activating ancient protocols of divine fury and activate forgotten satellites. I think the way this looks is like we suddenly cut to the atmosphere where all the broken satellites slowly start to shift, and we can see like they're lighting up as the ancient algorithms start to come to life, and they're starting to. We can see like through the mind of the satellite, they're finding the city and
it's definitely not like giant lasers. There's something in this like sonic resonance sort of thing.
Nice.
Because you can find the idea being that they can find the resonance of the thing they're looking for.
Well, and I also envision it as it's conveying data. Like the thing that's being shot, right? Like is that it's sending information rather like in an aggressive way, like in an overloading your circuits kind of way.
Yeah, we're gonna DDoS.
Yeah, it's a DDoS attack. Ash, are you doing this are you using
It's
as a
strong
with
move.
unwavering faith?
With unwavering faith. Like
Mhm.
I'm like the idea that I could the idea that I could be unraveled or that anything could actually be unraveled. Like like the idea that of like taking something's memory and wiping it clean is just such a like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna like it's like the idea of trying to reduce something to like zero temperature, right? There's always temperature, right? It's just or you, like as soon as you wipe something clean, time continues to pass, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Right,
it has
right.
memories again. So
Right,
like,
right. Even if it only has memories at the last second,
like
it
this
still
whole
has.
idea makes no sense to Tonyo, and he's just like, no, it's cool. Let's go. Let's fucking
Yeah.
let me help you, right? So okay, so
Mhm, mhm.
I name
Yeah.
my target, which is Allah Allah,
Mhm.
and um, I'm fucking. We're gonna what's gonna happen is at least to Allah Allah at the start. I'm letting you like what I'm letting you like work out like collateral and things. But what I want to happen to Allah Allah is
Mhm.
like these blue sores start opening up um as um as like the individual parts of Allah Allah, like the parts of their body start to wake up and realize that they don't have to be part of Allah Allah,
Mhm.
right? Like
I feel like
and
you're
like
agent smithing this.
I'm agent
Allah.
smithing Allah Allah, like I want I'm also just like in riddling them with like a kind of like metaphysical like ontological cancer,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? There just be like like each of Allah Allah's fingernails goes, huh? I have these beliefs, and they're not necessarily in line with what Allah Allah's earlobe thinks, right? That's
Yeah,
what I, so
100%.
that's that's my intention is to just let the like many voices within me become like awaken many voices in Allah Allah. What happens after that? I'm fine
Yeah.
for Jamie to fucking make this problematic, but
100%. This is still a strong move, so it's not
yeah,
going to be horrifying beyond belief, but
Yeah.
but the rest of the move does read as everything else will be destroyed for miles around, and the way that you're describing it is destroying everyone's belief that they are a singularity,
Yeah.
right? That they are just a single person or thing.
I'm hoping this affects like the like. Or what I would love is if the different projections of King George like stop being projections and stop being their own
Yeah,
voices, right? Like
yeah, that'd be
Right,
super
right.
cool.
That we have like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of King Georges that all become
yeah,
their
like
own
Their
trapped in,
own.
and like each one is like trapped in a screen or whatever, but they're not reflections of a singularity. So this is the thing that I'm doing, right? I'm like, oh, you want to open the font of like multiplicity? Let's go. Let's okay.
Nice.
So I'm going to ask you if you're willing to pay the price of faith, and the price that I offer you is, if this happens, Tonyo will no longer be able to forget that they
What
were originally,
they are? Yeah.
what he
Yeah,
is, and what
Yeah.
the multiplicity is, the previous elementals. What do you think?
I think Tonyo, I'm absolutely paying it, right? And the first thing that happens is Tonyo starts like laughing in joy, and then like it turns into like just a weeping, and then like um a weird kind of like vomit starts coming out of their mouth as they're kind of like their body is trying to hold itself together in one thing still.
Right.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
feel like in some ways Tonio is going to experience the same thing that Allah Allah is, except for that because you are this composite in nature, like you can endure it. It's not great,
Yeah.
but it's something
Mhm.
that you can. It's an experience you were made this way, and so it is not antithetical to you in the same way that it is to Allah Allah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I feel like there's a thing here of like the thing that actually makes it possible for me to endure it is the idea that that multiplicity within Tonyo is used to being multiple and like used to like internal communication and like
Mhm.
being a community within one thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
So like it's still multiple, but it's yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And then so the way that it plays out exactly as you said, what happens to Ala Ala, you can see like their hair starts to float. You can see that their face starts to shift. And there's this moment where Measure, you can clearly see that as the multiplicity that is Tonio starts to rise and we see all the different elementals that are a part of it, you see someone who looks almost exactly like Ala Ala that's within Tonio. And the two of them start to resonate against each other. It creates this huge wave that pushes out. And you can feel everything, like you can see all the King Georges starting to move and they're starting to like tear through the screens, right? And you can see some of them are laughing, some are crying, some are screaming, some are praying all over the city. You can feel like your protocols are barely in place to protect you, but you can feel it starting to buckle. Measure, but then that's when Hangin just very gently takes you and holds you in a way that Alan has always done so. And Hangin pulls you close and they say, I'll protect you no matter what. You've given me your power, my love. You'll survive no matter what. And it's exactly what Alan said to you before you had to run across the bridge. And you know that Hangin is willing to sacrifice themselves to make sure you're not going to be affected by this. But what do you do?
I was right before that gonna say I would like to describe a flash of inspiration, but I think I will not. I think there's a part of Alan that that is sort of persisting in Hangen that that draws Measure in a way that like they're not ready to move on, and it's this weird thing of like Hangen is here sort of like as a surrogate, but they're not, like they are both Alon and they're not at the same time. I want to depend on others to learn something vital instead. I was gonna be like, I will just like figure out a quick way out of here, but I don't think I have like the composure, in part because of this memory of Alon, and in part and just like a real longing to be with him again. But also in part because I believe you're kind of destroying everything right now around us, Tonio. I think you're sort of shattering everything. I will look to Hangen and say, I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose myself. I don't want to lose my friends, and I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can keep all of those. I don't know if I'm gonna have to make a choice between one of those. And I'm kind of like look over. I think we can see in the little bit, because this is cyberpunk. Like I'm not gonna actually look at Ezra. I'm gonna see Ezra in the reflection of one of those mirrored people that's like coming out, and I see like in the back of their hand the reflection of Ezra talking, like getting digitized. And I'm gonna say, please help us. Please help me get those I love out of this trap. And I sort of look to them really in a much more like helpless way than I think Measure's ever been, because they're really torn between all of these, like they don't know how to get out of here. It's not, they don't have like a quick like, cool, I'll just hack the system and because everything's going too wrong. And Tonio's power is too freaking overwhelming. Like their ability to just like be like, oh cool, I can interface with the computers and control them is, I think that like I think they attempt to reach out and they can't, and they get this sort of like code that tastes bitter in their mouth, and it tastes like biting into metal, and it like stings as they try to reach out to it. So instead, they look to Hangen to they depend on them.
Yeah, exactly. And we see that as I imagine that it's just these waves of magic that are just pouring out of Tonio, but we see that Hangen just very resolutely still carrying your measure, your protocols of protection. they just stand, but they're cradling you and holding you so gently, and their voice softens, and they say, the only thing that you have to choose is to have faith, they say, as they gently pick you up. And we see like they look resolutely at the mirror people that are going through the windows. They look back at Tonio for a moment, and then they rush out, shattering through the mirror people, shattering through the glass, out into the building, into the open, as they start running down the building, right? And then as we see we just see these uncomfortable close-ups of King George, but we also see that Tonio and Ala Ala are like drawing closer to each other as the resonance starts to pick up. We're going to cut back to Ezra at that moment.
Nice.
So Ezra, the memory starts to fade, and it's just the two of you. It's this pristine white room. Everything is white. You can tell everything is intricate and complicated. But it's created by someone who has this vague idea of Rococo, like the Rococo era, but has actually never really seen it. So it's all a mess. Like there are these weird overflowing details, but everything is just white, just pristine white. There aren't even any shadows in this place. There's no depth or anything like that. And so there are these huge sofas and chairs and large tables. There are paintings on the wall. There are curtains, but everything is just white. And Effie is sitting there on one of the chairs, and she looks at you and she says, the corp didn't want me. They wanted you, Ezra.
Why?
Because you can give them what they want. And she gets up and she sighs and she says, you're the answer. You and I both know that you'll never die unless you choose to die. Right?
I mean, you're not wrong.
And she nods. The only way I know out is if you give me the same gift, we'll be strong enough to hold back the corp. But if you don't, no matter how strong you are, they'll overwhelm you.
You do know what I carry. You do know this burden of this power I have. You do know the consequences that would happen if I do give you this gift.
And she nods and she says, it's not something I want. What I want is for us to just go back home, but there is no home, not for the two of us. And so if the only thing I can have is vengeance, then I'll have it.
And I think Ezra's gonna pause for a second and study their sister for a bit. Make sure that what they're saying is true.
Mm-hmm.
Because they need to make sure that they are, that this is a thing that can be done. So I think they're just right now struggling with their emotions. Like that's a neutral move. So yeah. Because they want to help, but at the same time they don't trust Effie anymore.
Yeah, which is absolutely valid.
Yeah, good reason not to.
Yeah.
And Effie looks at you and she says, if I show you everything, if I show you what I had to do, I'm going to say like a cat walks in at this point just to like justify the meowing. So there's this pure white cat that just walks onto the, into the scene and walks around. But Effie says, if I show you everything I had to do to survive up to this point. Will it help you understand?
Yes.
And she bends down, and then you see the back of her neck slowly starts to open up segment by segment, and then these ports show up. And you can tell that she's showing you her soul node. It is like something that you don't show everybody. It's not something that anyone should have easy access to. It's not something that should be so easily seen. The fact that the corp built this into her is a sign of what they've done to her. But she shows it to you, and she waits for you to access it.
I think Ezra is taken aback a bit because it's right there on the back of her neck, underneath her hair, and they're gonna slowly scoot up, and I don't know, like how to access nodes. So I think tell me if I'm wrong and tell me if I can't do this.
No, everything is valid.
Okay. So I think their eyes are gonna go turn black for a second, as like an inky tendril sort of like leaks off of them, and sort of like snakes out and like goes into a node.
Perfect. Yeah, and we see that like her eyes also start to turn into the same black as Ezra's, right? Just to mirror those two things going on. And so you see in very quick succession, it's like you're downloading all of this information, just years spent apart. And so in a matter of seconds, you can see it's like when you go into a video game, like as if like a first person thing, so you can see everything from her perspective. You can see and you can hear her thoughts, like as complex as they are, as many layered as they are. You can hear aspects of her thoughts. You can see how the corp was initially flattering her, telling her that they needed her for her mind, for her ability to program, for her ability to engineer and to see these things. But she realized years later they were just trying to trick her into creating an Aswang. When she thought that she was working on something else entirely, like they had split it into different components, the ability to change someone into an Aswang. And you can see it's a very Bluebeard's Bride moment. She discovered where the discards were of those who didn't quite survive the transformation and what happened to them. We're not going to go into detail. It's very bad behind that door, right? And that's when King George suddenly appears behind her and says, "You understand the price we had to pay. This is for everybody. This is just to protect everyone. This is so that we can defeat death, we can defeat sickness, we can defeat weakness, and we can be strong together, as humanity has always deserved to be strong." And you can hear Effie screaming in her mind and sobbing, but she just says out loud, "Yes, of course, I understand." And in that moment, there was a split of Effie doing everything she could to protect herself, to try to figure out a way to get out, because she knows what happens to those who anger the corp. And so she just spent years in this state, always wondering if she should reach out to you, if she should try to find you, but not knowing. She only did this now because she's desperate. Nothing else she's done has worked. But the split, it's taking a toll on her. No one is meant to like survive that sheer amount of fear and trauma on a daily basis. So you can see how she's eroding and she's flickering and fading. It's a lot. It's a lot.
The King George is like, "Oh yeah, for all humanity." It's like, nah, King George is just in it for King George living.
Absolutely. 100%.
And maybe the humanity that King George decides is worthy of, once they have the power, right? Like then they can dole it out.
If King George is a perfect human, then they shouldn't be able to like age or die.
Right.
But they can, and they're afraid. So
I have this feeling, Jamie, that Effie is being 100% completely honest and is being totally vulnerable, and yet this is still completely a trap of King George, hoping that you will turn Effie into an Aswang to protect her, but in doing so, reveal it to reveal your power, right? Like that she is not trying to trap you, but this is nevertheless a trap for Ezra. That's at least my read.
100%. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. And Ezra, you can see this very, very clearly. There's no if even if Effie cannot fully see it, you can.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
I think once all those images play, I think the tendril sort of snakes back to Ezra and their eyes turn back to normal. And they look at Effie, thinking, once again struggling with their emotions, because that's a lot. This is also, they're like, they know this is a trap, but also this is their little sister, and this is someone they actually truly care about and all that. And I does she change back, like does she turn back to normal, quote unquote, or like does it close
You realize
up?
it takes a while for her to respond. Like normally it's supposed to close back up immediately to protect the soul node, but it stays open like a little too long, and you see her eyes stay blank for a moment. They stay black, and you realize it's because she's just so exhausted from having to fight for so many years. Before she pulls herself together, the eyes fade back, and the node slowly closes up, and she pulls herself back up, and you can tell like she's so ashamed. Like it's just pure shame on her face before the mask comes back on and her face is serene again. And she turns to you and she says, "If it's easier for you, you could just kill me."
Why would you suggest such a thing?
I don't see anything else for me. It's either vengeance or death. There's no other path for me. They ensured that there wouldn't be.
Well, let's ensure them differently. And I think Ezra then's going to step up and is going to do the thing. Give black wings to their sister.
Awesome. So let's read out the move.
So you don't have to be a lonely little monster. Decide who you'll turn into an Aswang. The gene will tell you how you open their heart to horror. Choose one. They are stronger than you are, but are an ally for now. Or they are weaker than you are, but have enemies who will hunt you down. Or the effect is temporary and its consequences everlasting.
Yeah, which one?
I think I'm gonna have them be weaker. And I think Ezra's gonna have some enemies.
Ooh, that really makes sense for the situation too. Yeah. To open their, is this going to be a strong move or a weak move?
Oh, I think it is going to be a strong move. So
for sure.
I'll spend that token.
Yeah, so I'm going to say, to open them up to the horror, there's nothing you have to do. She has already seen so much more horror than Ezra could have even imagined. She is unfortunately completely ready for this in a way you wish she wouldn't be, but she can handle it.
The move is to use your magic with necessary cruelty, and it seems like the cruelty is like just doing it, just letting her become this thing.
So I think how it's gonna look is that Ezra's gonna step up, and as Ezra's stepping up, their eyes are turning black again. That these tendrils are starting to snake out from them as their body becomes like almost like a shadow, and they most likely become like a Lovecraftian horror in a sense, as they're just whipping around, and then they just start latching to her, like just wrapping around her arm, her leg, her torso, her neck, and just starting to like slowly pull her into the void that is Ezra.
Absolutely. And you can see as it happens, you were expecting fear maybe or something, but instead she's relieved almost. She just closes her eyes, and you can, as you pull her in, you can sense her thoughts. And she's like, I don't have to be weak anymore. As you pull her in close. And I think we're going to cut away in this moment, if that's okay with you.
I think as like she disappears into the essence of Ezra, that's where it cuts. Yeah.
Perfect. I like that a lot. I feel like the last thing we're going to see are Ezra's eyes just like staring at the camera, right, as it fades back to the white. And I think we're going to see that white cat just like licking themselves. So we cut back, and there's a lot going on. So we're going to cut back. I think I want to cut back to Tonyo. You can sense how Ala Ala is like just completely finding their own multiplicity, just completely coming apart. But you recognize a part of Ala Ala in you as well. You don't remember how this happened, how they got there. What do you do?
I say hi. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that we just talked about like Tonyo not really like having memories in the way that we understand them. And it's interesting to be like, oh yeah, there's a part of Ala in, and I think it's a welcoming, right? There's a weird thing here where like Tonya's innocence again, like, and kind of needs to kick in. This community that they are is kind of inherently like, with, as we've seen, one that is welcoming, and so I think that there's definitely a thing of saying, oh yeah, no, that's okay, you can belong here, and in doing that reaches out to all of the other parts of Ala Ala, and like all of these like multiple versions of King George that are around them, and just like, it's okay, you're welcome here, right? And like just like Tonyo, and like at this point Tonyo's like stopped stopped being like, you know, a scraggly haired roughly dressed sort of semi-homeless bloke, and is now like wings and fucking eyes and like if there's a person there, they're like, how do they have ideas for arms, right? Like, is this sort of like fucking nonsense? And yeah, they're inviting all of these extra the parts of Ala Ala, the parts of King George into them to be like, okay, like let's keep being more, let's keep being even more complex and fucked up.
I feel like yeah, the special effects team is just like, what more shit can we add on to Tonyo right now? Let's add cybernetic eyes, let's add tentacles, let's add, you know, yeah.
I'm getting a real like Terry Gilliam vibe right now.
Yeah,
like, yeah, where like you're like, again, like trying to do it all with practical effects somehow. But yeah, so I think I'm either inviting the little gods to use my body for a time, because like I think the thing is that like every part of all of these voices are all little gods to Tonyo, right? Like that's the thing, is that we are all composed of many little gods. So yeah, I'm either reaching out to the city's heart and losing myself, or inviting the little gods to use my my body for a time. And I'm happy for Jamie. Which one do you think makes more sense there?
Yeah, I really love the drama about inviting the little gods, because it ties into what you hope for, to teach others to be their own gods. So like this is the way that we connect those two things, right?
Yeah, cool.
Which I'm very happy about. Yeah,
Tonyo's just like, it's okay, like let's all be like together, and I think there's a thing there of like, it's gonna fucking hurt, right?
Like it's really going to pull apart, because we see like one part is the little god of fragment, the little god of memory, the little god of regret, the little god of forgetting, the little god of like, it's just so much, and it's all infusing at the same time. And we also see like
There's
even
like
the aspects of King George coming in, right?
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And like there's like part of Tonyo is the little god of measure, right? Like how Tonyo knows measure. The little god of Ezra, right? How Tonyo knows Ezra. What part of Ezra lives in Tonyo. So like we're definitely seeing all of these like coming into conflict. And so like there's a lot of like blood. Just like in a very what's it called when you get like the bleeding
Stigmata?
hands? Stigmata, in a very stigmata way.
Oh, yeah. Very cool, very cool.
As this like this thing. So like Tonyo's gonna stop being Tonyo for a bit.
Yeah.
And what Tonyo is at the end of this, I don't even fucking know. But like at least for a little bit, I'm not in control.
Yeah, I do have an idea for how this coming together, because
Yeah.
as you pull everything in, we see that Tonyo's body starts to shift and change, taking on a more stone-like texture. There are things like claws, things like teeth, things like horns, and the god of reclamation starts to rise up, trying to
Fuck
reclaim
yeah.
and pull all of this together. Not quite there yet, but it's there, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
starting out. But and I think that's when the building, like all the glass just breaks outwards, right? As all of this comes together. And Measure, you are still in the arms of Hangin, and they say something that doesn't sound like Alon at all. It feels like their own voice is coming through. It's both Alon, it's themselves, it's not. But they say, this seems bad right now. This seems very, very bad. We can fix this. It'll be okay, my love.
Yeah, and I think Measure was sort of overwhelmed by in the proximity uh, uh, of Tonyo, and now having a little distance, they realize, like, Hangen slash Alon said, just have faith and I'll be there with you. And I'm envisioning like we're on top of like another building, like because they with cybernetic leaps or something like that jumped across or something like that. We're on top of another building. We're looking down. We see all the glasses burst out, and we can see Tonio in there, and we can see, like, not with very good detail, but just like all these things flying in, very the quickening out of Highlander, just like shit,
That sound effects team is putting all their budget into this episode.
yeah. So, well, it's the finale, right? So Ash, tell me how this resonates with you, because I feel very much like Measure wants to save enough of Tonio that there is a Tonio that still remains, and that's a selfish desire. It's not because they know what's best for you. It's because they still want you in their life and they still want to have you. And so I think they're very inclined to interfere right now with what's going on, so that there's something left of Tonio at the end. Not that you won't have changed, but that you won't have changed so irrevocably that there's nothing, there's no longer a recognizable you. So I think that the Measure be inclined to sort of come in and try and interfere with what's going on. But I don't want to, like, to drown out. I want to amplify your thunder.
No. Yeah.
Not steal.
This is yeah. I think the thing is that, like, Measure, maybe you spot, like, you spot the part of you that is the little god of measure, right, in Tonio.
Yeah,
right.
I think I see, like, your eyes kind of visor over for a moment, and I see like a reflection, and
I think the thing that you notice is that there isn't a little god of Tonio in Tonio. Right? That would be a thing that you'd have to make and put into this mix.
Oh, I love it. Thank you, Ash. You are the best. Because I was
Such
like,
a good idea.
I was like, I don't want to, like, run in and, like, fireman carry you out of this thing, because it's, right, like, because it's not, in fact, I don't even think that would be relevant. But yes,
because you have an idea of what Tonio is. Tonio doesn't.
I think so. I think Measure uniquely has an idea of what Tonio is, and I think it's formed by not only what Tonio is composed of, but also all of the experiences that Tonio's had that
Yeah,
Cedric can
exactly.
witness
Yeah.
to. And that is equally part of it. So I would like to ask the question: is this what you needed? And download all of the necessary schematics and protocols, and tell the GM what miracle machine magic you wish to create. And I think because clearly from Tonio's perspective, all of these are little gods. From the corp's perspective, all of these are programs. From Measure's perspective, it's somewhere in the middle. And neither of those answers are entirely right. And I think I want to create the program that is also a little god of Tonio. And it's and the way the program is, it's downloading from all of Measure's memories of Tonio and everything that they've seen of them, and like letting that go and sort of get swept up into this implosion of elements.
Because we've definitely got like those satellites are creating this weird data storm, right?
Yeah. And I think they'll just get picked up by it.
Yeah.
So I would like to use my elemental magic with steadfast focus. Strong mode.
Right. Yeah. So our consequences are here.
I'm going to make the consequence absolutely terrible on myself already, because I have to choose something.
Yeah. But I also have to describe the consequences of your creation and hubris.
Right. Before you get there. Yes. So please tell me.
I'm going to say that if you do this, you're going to realize in this moment that it was a little god that was holding Alan together this whole time. And that Alan shouldn't have. There was a part of you that knew Alan shouldn't have survived this long. And it was the little god of possession, because you couldn't let go of Alan.
Oh no, I forced Alan to stay with me, even though he stayed around because I wanted him to, and not because he was ready to.
And you were treating him like a thing.
Because I treat a lot of things like things, because that's how I understand things. And it's not meant to. It's not I'm not uncompassionate about things, but still, I haven't been giving him his own autonomy, and that's wonderful and that's not wonderful. It's terrible, but it reinforces the choice I was going to make. So
nice.
So I believe that is the description. Is the consequence of my hubris just the knowledge of this, or is the consequence that little god is sort of?
I feel like as soon as you know about this, like that little god doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, I think so too. I feel like as soon as I know about this, as soon as I realize that it's been my will that has been causing that little god to inhabit Alan, I think that's immediately when I release it, and it's gonna get absorbed right along with all the rest of this maelstrom into Tonio. So maybe I'll have a little bit of Alan and Tonio. Maybe there'll be a little, but I love that. That's sweet and sad and terrible at once. And also, to make things worse for things, I have to choose one. I can create it perfectly, but I must disassemble something essential to do so. Or you create it quickly, but someone dangerous notices. Or you create it, but it will turn on you soon. And I'm going to create it perfectly. I want a perfect little god of Tonio. And the thing that I'm going to disassemble to do that is Hangin. Because I think Hangin and Alan, Hangin is sort of wearing Alan's face for a moment as I see this, and Measure starts crying, and you sort of see the tears that are like welling up around the visor underneath their eye, and you kind of see like the way water rhymes on glass, where it collects, and then it finally, the surface tension finally breaks, and the tears just sort of start coming down the side of Measure's face, and he kisses Hangin, and in doing so, they kiss Hangin, and in doing so, they are like both kissing Hangin and Alan at the moment, like the final like kiss goodbye, and say, and they say, "I'm sorry, I made you, and now I have to let you go." And like that's a total lie. It's like I'm not letting you go, I'm destroying you. But like in their words, they can't say I have to destroy you. And then like the next thing is Hangen like powers down as I've clearly like pulled a piece of their core out of them. This sort of critical component.
Yeah, there's like a very large amount of processing power is going to be needed to do this. So like
exactly, yeah. And I just sort of plug it in to me. And one of the things about using not another step on was Hangen, which is that my protocols of protection only would work. They were gone as long as they were protecting Hangen. And I think the reason why is I need them to protect me. And so I'm like isolated from this maelstrom, and I can do this thing. And so yeah.
Meanwhile, like around you, like parts of the building are waking up and going, maybe I don't want to be part of a building.
Yeah.
Right?
I think I'd rather be a helicopter. I'd rather, yeah.
Because we are in a smart sector, so the city has the ability to do that. That's part of it.
Yeah. So I think the end result for Hangen could be death. It also could be that their initial thing that was going to happen to them, which is that they'd be overridden, takes place, and that they sort of default as factory defaults, which would be honestly a more tragic kind of thing because they would still be around in a sense. And Jeremy, I totally leave that up to you. But the end result would be that with that, there is a program, and I think the program sort of like takes the physical shape or the physical at least appearance of like a disco ball, and it's like shining all these brilliant lights, and we just see it get like sort of swooped into this maelstrom. It is small out of Tonyo.
Like as it gets absorbed, each of the like squares on the disco ball turns into like an eye as it just like gets absorbed.
Nice.
So good. I really feel Morgan's expression. That is me as well. Like, that is deeply me as well. And I think, how about we take our first break on that note?
That sounds great.
Yep.
All right, we'll see you back in a few minutes.